Hello there again. We are going to do the Tea Act and the Tea Parties today because you know right after the Boston Massacre you got to have a party, don't you? All right, on your papers, your title is the Tea Act and Tea Parties, and you will be basing this on ushistory.org, presented by me. No pictures today, guys. And it is February 19th, 2016, so go ahead and get ready. And just because it's fun, you know we hate taxes. Oh, just how much we hate taxes. And so, of course, repealing, taking back the Townsend taxes wasn't enough. It just was not enough because, in fact, not only were the British still collecting tax on tea, they were still collecting on sugar too. So we've got two taxes that are a problem, tea and sugar. All right. Add to the problem that in your town, Boston, the major trading town in the colonies, you have the military living in your houses, town, your world, okay? And they haven't even gotten as bad as they're going to get about living in your homes, quartering themselves there. And then there's that problem of those pesky custom officials. They're looking for those smuggling bonuses, so they're really working hard to find those ships that are smuggling. In fact, one of their ships, remember that the crown paid for them to have ships to go out and search for the smugglers, obviously. Well, they had this lovely little ship called the Gaspee. You see it right here. And the Gaspee got caught up on some rocks outside of Providence in Narragansett Bay, Narragansett Indians, the Narragansett Bay outside of Providence. They got caught up there on the rocks, and the colonists took advantage of it, and they went out there and burned it. So, you know, the colonists weren't doing a whole lot to make the British happy, quite frankly, and the British weren't doing a whole lot to make the colonists happy. And things start to get violent. So the British government starts playing Monopoly. You always thought that was just a game, didn't you? Well, Monopoly is based on the concept of mono, one. Poly is many. Well, Monopoly is where one entity oversees many different things, makes it one, and they have complete control over it. So here we have a problem. The British East India Company, some of you have heard of about that before. In fact, you might have even made a board about it, was just about bankrupt. Well, Lord North, and if you remember, Lord North was one of those prime ministers of England. He was the one who was prime minister for 12 years, decides he's going to save the British East India Company by giving a monopoly on trade with the colonies. They're going to be the only ones, the only company allowed to trade with the colonies. And the colonies are only allowed to trade with them, more importantly. So the colonists have to not only get their tea from the British East India Company, the BEIC, they've got to pay taxes too. They don't like that. They feel like a stranglehold is being put on them. Ironically, by doing this, and this is kind of the funny part, when they gave the British East India Company that monopoly, it allowed them to drop the prices on their tea because they had no competition. But that didn't make the colonists happy. They weren't like, oh, wow, now we're getting our tea for cheap. No, they were furious because they still had to pay taxes, and now they had no choice. And people who have kind of that independent spirit, remember, this is the events that lead to independence, they don't like not having choice. It's a problem. And in fact, Lord North had even thought that the colonists would like this, but the colonists saw it forced them to pay taxes. And then also the reality is there was no guarantee that just because the price was low to begin with that it would stay low. So we have a whole bunch of colonists who are quite unhappy with not only the British East India Company, I'm sorry, but they're really unhappy with Lord North and Parliament. So they continue to play Monopoly. Because of that monopoly, the activists, many of those activists are going to be known as the Sons and Daughters of Liberty. They're going to get busy again with the boycott. But getting more serious, the activists are going beyond that boycott, and they start threatening violence against any British East India Company ships, BEIC, British East India Company. And so a lot of the British East India Company ships turned around and went back to England rather than to be destroyed. Well, if you're going back to England, you're not making any money. In Annapolis, which is in Maryland, a BEIC ship was burned along with its tea. Okay, and then we know about Boston. If you look closely at the picture, the painting, this is a drawing, and in that drawing, this is where we can see right there the colonists who are dressed up as Indians, I hate that, are going to throw a whole bunch of tea into the harbor and have a little party. So let's go to the Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party came about because the royal governor at that time, Thomas Hutchinson, allowed 3 ships into the Boston harbor. Before any taxes could even be collected, the Bostonians went to work. In December of 1773, they threw 342 chests of tea into the harbor. They dressed up as Native Americans, and that to me is cowardly and racist, but that's what they did. And they basically destroyed $750,000 worth of tea in our money today. So the tea never made it to the colonists, it just made it to their harbor. And so the harbor was, a whole bunch of fish got to drink tea. Ha ha. I know you've heard that joke before. You had to have. Well, because of the Boston Tea Party, the empire is going to strike back. Ha ha. I love Star Wars references. Britain will get back at the colonists by passing acts so nasty, the colonists are going to call them intolerable. And that's for Monday. So you know what to do. Collaborate, question, summarize. Thank you, guys.